When the moon is in the seventh house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, then peace will guide the planets and love will steer the stars. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Many of you might be already humming the song from the musical Hair. According to astrology websites, this past week also saw the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Not only did Jupiter and Saturn come closest together than they have since the year 1226, the two planets moved from Capricorn into Aquarius. Since ancient times, people noticed that some points of light, called planets, wander and move in reference to the constellations that only rotate but don't move around the sky. As a result, our ancients mapped and predict the movements of the planets based on the constellations that we find them. Astrology is the art of assigning meaning to the movement of the planets. The astrology websites say that Jupiter and Saturn both entering into Aquarius and going to be there for 2021 means that this new year will be more peaceful and tranquil. How can they be so sure? Did astrologers predict 2020? What is the point of astrology? The New York Times notes that many astrologers predicted a prosperous 2020 back in January. And we all know the many 2020 conferences that were planned to talk about how we can see and have better sight into the future. And yes, there were some astrologers who predicted that 2020 would be a tumultuous, tough year, usually thinking about the election. They did not predict the global pandemic and certainly the millions of deaths that it's brought. The article in the Times quotes Steph Koifman, a curator of a site called The Daily Hunch, that she put together to help people cope through the pandemic. She writes or says, quote, "Astrology provides tools to cope with uncertainty and the daily frustrations and fears brought on by the pandemic." She continues, "I think astrology comforts people because it has a way of naming and unpacking archetypal patterns. It allows people to put to words what they're already feeling, and that helps them feel witnessed. It is a way of orienting yourself in time," she says. "It helps take you beyond the, oh my God, why is this happening to me?" to saying, this is how time works. It's just a cycle. Astrology doesn't predict the future. It helps us cope with the present and prepare ourselves for the future. And that is how I see astrology. I've taught classes in the past about how astrology exists in Judaism. The phrase Mazal Tov means good astrological sign, to bring order to our chaotic world. The long-term cycle of the stars demonstrates, like Kohelet says, Ein Chadash Tachat Hashemesh. There is nothing new under the stars. In 1226, Jupiter and Saturn were like this. And if you looked at the sky, actually it was cloudy on Monday night, but you can go online and you'll see pictures of these two bright lights very close to each other, including one where there was the International Space Station right in between the two planets, at least from the perspective of that telescope. Intellectually, we know that humanity has suffered the same calamities that we have in 2020. Pandemics are not new. There was bubonic plague, smallpox, which lasted over 1,000 years, the flu pandemic of 1918. Climate disasters like hurricanes and tsunamis are not new. Earthquakes are not new. And even asteroids hitting the Earth as recently just occurred with no casualties, thankfully, in central New York, occur. Our ancestors looked to the stars for some order and hope that things would turn out okay. And lo and behold, humanity got through each crisis. Things became normal again, or at least we adapted to the new normal. In this week's Torah portion, Vayiggash, we read about the emotional reunion of Joseph with his brothers and his father Jacob. There is some fear of retribution, but Joseph tells his brothers, it's time for a reset. It's time for a new beginning. Let us live together in peace and harmony. As we stand at the end of 2020, we are exhausted. We are overwhelmed. How can we do even a few more months of this pandemic? And while it is not a Jewish New Year, this secular New Year, Thursday night into Friday, is a chance in our circular calendar for a reset, for a new beginning. No one person and no star can predict what 2021 will bring. But there are seeds of hope and goodness that I think will germinate. We have produced what looks like effective vaccines, showing us that if we will it, there is no dream. Im tirtzu ein zo agada. Joseph spent years in jail for a crime he did not commit. That could have eaten his soul away. Yet Joseph did not let that happen. We should emulate Joseph as we turn the calendar, thankfully, from 2020 to 2021, and know that as the earth and the planets turn, like the musical Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, we have read the book and everything will turn out all right. Shabbat Shalom.